This lesson is on subtracting whole numbers. Again, we use the number line when we were adding whole numbers, and you could also use the number line if you wish to subtract whole numbers. When you use the number line, you're going to start with your pen or your finger on whatever your first value is. And now, in this case, I'm going to subtract 3. So if I subtract, I'm moving to the left. So left is subtract, and to the right is addition. So I'm going to subtract 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 units to the left, and I land on 5, and so that is the value. The word that means the result to a subtraction problem is difference. So if you ever hear someone say find the difference between two things, typically mathematically they mean to subtract. Just as with addition, when you're dealing with large numbers, using a number line just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to use that same idea of lining up the values, and on this one it's very important that whatever number they give me first goes on top. And then I'm going to subtract 124, which is my second number, and notice again I've lined up ones digit with ones, tens with tens, hundreds with hundreds. Now I'm just going to find the difference of each column. So 6 minus 4 is 2, 7 minus 2 is 5, and 9 minus 1 is 8. So my difference is 852. On this example, it's not going to work out quite as well. So again, I'm going to stack them, lining up place values. And when I subtract, if the digit that I'm subtracting from is if the digit that I'm subtracting is larger than the digit I'm subtracting from, I'm going to have to borrow from the column to the left of that. So here's how that works. Notice I'm trying to take 5 away from 3, but I can't take 5 away from 3. I could take 5 away from 13, so I can borrow from the 2, and when I borrow, it's going to decrease this digit by 1, and it's always going to add a 1 to the number to the right. So now I have 13 minus 5, and I can take 13 minus 5. 13 minus 5 is 8. And now my new value is no longer a 2, now it's a 1, so 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 minus 9, again, I can't take 9 away from 1, and so now I'm going to have to borrow again. I'm going to borrow from the 5, and that decreases the 5 by 1. So now the 5 turns into a 4, and we add a 1 to the value that is borrowing. So now I have 11 minus 9, and I can subtract 11 minus 9 to get 2. And now 4 minus 3 is 1. 4 minus 1 is 3, and 1 minus nothing is 1. So my result is 131,208. Here are 2 for you to try on your own, so try them and then press play to see how you did. For my first example, I have 1,254 minus 98. Make sure that you line them up properly. 4 minus 8, I cannot take 8 away from 4, so I'm going to have to borrow to turn that 5 into a 4 and add the 1. So now I have 14 minus 8, which is 6. Now I have 4 minus 9. Again, I can't take 9 away from 4, so I'm going to have to borrow again. So 2 turns into 1, and 4 turns into 14. Now 14 minus 9 is 5. 1 minus nothing is 1, and 1 minus nothing is 1. So there's my answer, 1,156. For my second practice, I have 13,974 minus 1,975. I think I'm going to have to do a lot of borrowing on this question. I cannot take 5 away from 4, so I borrow from the 7. It turns into a 6, and I add the 1. So 14 minus 5 is 9. 6 minus 7 doesn't work, so I'm going to have to borrow from the 9 to turn it into an 8. And 6 becomes 16. Now 16 minus 7 is 9. Now 9 away from 8 doesn't work again, so I have to borrow from the 3 to turn it into a 2. So I have 18 minus 9. 18 minus 9 is 9. And now I have 2 minus 1, which is 1, and then 1 minus nothing, which is 1. So my value is 11,999.